the one, the only Benzion. Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is Benzion Gittin daf Iyun Gimel number 73. I want to focus today on Iyun Gimel and Aleph, which basically lays out the halachas about onus begittin. If an onus happens with gittin, the famous case is he says on Megari Shu, if I don't recover from a certain sickness, and instead of dying from the sickness, a house falls on him, a lion attacks him, a snake bites him, and he dies for that reason. So there's a brisa the Gemara brings, which seemingly is conflicting. The Rishon says it's not a good get, and the Seder says it is a good get. We end up posketing, it comes out from the Gemara, we posketing like the first answer, and the reason is not because he said michol izah, and he didn't die from a sickness, he died from a snake biting him. That's not the reason. The reason the Gemara seems to say is because it's an onus de lo shchiach. If it was some other onus, which is fairly common, right? Let's say got hit by a car or something like that, that would, right, be a fulfilling the Tanai, and it would be a get. However, getting bit by a snake or a lion jumping out of the woods and killing him, or the house collapsing, how often does it happen? 98% of the time it doesn't happen. That's called onus de lo shchiach, right? Onus unfortunate circumstances, someone go and kill him or drive a car into him. These things happen fairly often. Onus lo shchiach is different. And the Gemara brings cases when it comes to dinim mamanis also. Onus lo shchiach is different, where it's not very common to happen at all. It's not. It's considered different than a regular onus, and therefore it would bevatal the get. Now, if you go back to the beginning of Maseches Ksubos and Benzion Gittin and Aleph, the Gemara has a discussion. Yesh onus begittin, ein onus begittin. The Gemara actually brings some of these discussions, these brises and mishnayos we've had. Is there onus begittin or ein onus begittin? And the Gemara, there's two lashonos. The first lashon is how we paskin, and the Gemara paskins the ein onus begittin. You can't make a taina as onus begittin. Meaning, if I give a get and an onus happens, I can't make a taina and say an onus happened. I didn't mean to give the get. Once you give the get is a valid get. Now, based on what I explained yesterday, right? If I give a get, right, in front of two Eidim, right, according to Belazar, we hold like Eideh Masira Karsi. That when we have two Eidim watching that makes a creases 100%. It makes a creases. So in order to revoke what happened, I have to come up with a pretty good excuse. Now, if it's an onus, which a common onus which happens, so we say ein onus begit, then that's not an onus. However, if it's an onus lo shchiach, so then even though it's not 100%, right, there's a 2% possibility. A 1% possibility it might get bit by a snake, but it's not strong enough to remove a creasus, right? The get was given over in front of two Eidim. So that's a creasus, right? It's 100%, I explained. However, since it's such a strong rove, it's a rove, over 90% at least, it weakens it. Since they're so close, it erases it, it weakens it. And we'll discuss going forward, there's types of partial gittin, right? When you give a get and you say, take your get off the floor, right? Tli gitech ma'al gabe karka. The Gemara says it's not a good get because you have to give it. But is it a partial get? We'll discuss that giving forward. He has to do a ma'aseh nesina. And even though we did a complete ma'aseh nesina over here, because it's only to the lo shchiach, and it's a rove that never happens, but it's still a rove, a pretty strong possibility it's not going to happen, it weakens the matana. And that's why Rashi, actually, in Maseches Gittin, Maseches Ksubos at the beginning, he says, what's the reason? It's a very interesting Rashi. Rashi says, what's the reason that you would say onus begittin? He brings us a pasuk, l'nara lo sasa davar. It's talking about a woman who's raped. A woman who's raped, she's not responsible. She doesn't bear any blame. She doesn't get punished for it. Only the man gets punished because she's forced against her will. So it's hard to understand, right? We're talking onus begittin. We're talking about stipulations over here. Did he mean it or did not mean it? So what's Rashi bringing? The concept of ein onus, right? There's a tour of onus. That's by raping someone. The woman's not responsible. She doesn't get punished for it. Because that's not a ma'aseh. She didn't do anything. Like Gemara says in Maseches Sanhedrin, a woman is karka olam. She's not participating over here. She's forced against her will. She didn't do any action. How could you punish her? What does it have to do with Gittin? So I think in light of what I'm saying over here, it makes a lot of sense. Because there is an action by Gittin. It's the nesina. According to Rebbe, that's the most important thing. The nesina, not the ksiva. The nesina is the most important thing. And therefore, since there's a rove, right, a rud leiskama is very not shchiach, so that ruins the reisa in the ma'aseh. It's not a complete ma'aseh of Gittin, just like a nara l'sasa davar, she didn't do a ma'aseh over here. Also, the matana, the nesina saket, is weakened. It's a weakened nesina, and therefore it doesn't take effect. Now, the halacha in Maseches Ksubos is that really Ain't onus begittin. You can't make a taina. Even it seems if it's onus lo shchiach, you can't make a taina. I know that the Tosos Maseches Ksubas not Beis seems to go against what I'm saying, but I think the correct psak from our is Gemara. Even if it's onus lo shchiach, right? The Rabbanan really technically midaraisa yesh onus begittin. There is onus begittin. There is onus begittin because, like I explained, the Lenaro says it's a reisa. It's a weakened matan, and therefore there's no giving of the get. However, the Rabbanan, the real reason ain't onus begittin, we assume it is a good get, is like the Gemara says in Maseches Ksubos, mishum snuos uprutos, because it's snuos uprutos might make a mistake. Therefore, the Rabbanan afkin Rabbanan kedusha minay, and the Rabbanan made it a valid get. They made it a valid get, or either they took away the kedusha or they made the get a valid get. However you like to explain that, and therefore it is a get. So really, the Raisa, it's not a good nesina because of the Reisa as I explained over here. And in the case of onus lo shchiach, only in that case, the Reisa, we'll talk about in the nesina. It's like, yeah, there's a Reisa, there's a weakness of the nesina, so it's not a good get. The Rabbanan had to come mishum snuos and prutos and make it a good get, and that really summarizes the whole sugya of midaraisa is onus begittin. Midaraisa, there should be onus begittin, but we paska ain't onus begittin because of snuos of prutos. So that's after this Gemara. We know from Maseches Ksubos ain't onus begittin because of snuos of prutos. They made it a get, and then Ravatal the kedushin or made it a good get and abrogated the marriage. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you in the next one.